Okay, before we get into this episode and this theory that I've recently just conjured up as a way to break free from overthinking and OCD, or anything related for that matter, there's a very foundational principle that you have to understand, and you have to let it resonate with you very deep in your being. And if you can't convince yourself that this is the truth, then I recommend doing a thorough amount of research, not in the way of reassurance, but in the way of information to realize this sentence that you are not your thoughts is the truth, and that you have to be able to separate yourself as an awareness from the cognitive processes of your mind. Okay? So your mind is a body part, and what we know to be consciousness so far is the awareness of said cognitive functions, the awareness of your experience of life, the awareness of your thoughts, your emotions, and all those things. Okay? So before we start this, you need to remember and you need to hold true, like it's your best friend, this sentence: you are not your thoughts. That sentence is not what will save you, but it's what will keep you on track. And everything else that comes about is more so how far are we falling away from that sentence. That's kind of the instruction manual to this video game that I'm about to sort of introduce. Okay, so now that we have that established, that's sort of the instruction manual. Let's get into actually how do you play this game and how do you win? It's very simple. The first thing that's going to happen is you're going to be going about your day, right? And let's say this happens tomorrow or today, whenever it is that you encounter this video, the next moment after finishing it and you're going about your life. You're going to be doing something, washing the dishes, doing your laundry, anything like that, and a thought is going to pop into your awareness. This might be a familiar thought, one that's scared you hundreds of times already and sends you into a spiral. This might be a worrisome thought, an anxious thought, any sort of thought that's causing you any sort of disturbance. Now I want you to notice a couple things. The first thing being, where do you feel the hurting? Where do you feel the discomfort in your body when that thought occurs? So I want you to label it. Where do you feel it in your body? What does it feel like? What does the discomfort feel like when you feel that thought? Or sorry, when you hear that thought? What does that discomfort in your body feel like? Note that. You can even write this down. If you want to write down the rules to this quote unquote video game to help keep yourself reminded, you could do that as well. But first, notice that feeling in your body, right? And sort of separate yourself from it and say, okay, this is the bodily experience. This is the bodily reaction to that thought or to a fearful thought, to an anxious thought. Okay, so the thought itself doesn't really matter. More so, how does it make you feel in your body? And this is what we're going to use as a sort of metric for understanding all of the fearful thoughts, all of the anxious thoughts, because they're all probably going to make you feel a very similar way, at least the ones that are actually bothering you. So, yeah, notice how it feels in your body and label that. So you say, I could feel it in my chest or maybe my stomach, my muscles feel like they're tightening. And then the next thing I want you to notice is, what do you want to do after hearing that thought? What kind of safety are you looking for from that thought? From this imaginary danger that is sort of came into your mind, what do you want to do? Do you want to hyper obsess on Google searches about whatever that fear, whatever that anxiety might be? Do you want to reach out to a friend? Do you want to go hide in your room? Do you want to give up on the day? What do you want to do? What is the natural impulse? What is the natural running away? Notice that as well. So now we notice how it feels in the body and we can detach from that, right? Because that's the body experiencing fear. That's the body experiencing anxiety as a result of a thought being triggered. Okay, so that's one. And we can detach from that because remember, we are the awareness of these things. When I'm saying this, for this video game, quote unquote, to be in effect, you have to realize that you, as a player of this video game, are awareness. You are awareness of the thoughts. You are awareness of the body. You are awareness of the the emotions, and you are awareness of absolutely everything. Okay? Your character doesn't have any thoughts. It's just awareness. Don't read too deep into that. Just realize the voice in your mind, the thoughts, that is not the player of this game. The player is the awareness of those thoughts, the silent, non-speaking awareness, presence. Okay, so let's move on. We've detached and we've noted the bodily feeling. We've detached and we've noted our natural impulses. And number 3, we have to come to the realization that it's not what we do that is going to put points on the board and make us better at this game. It's what we don't do. Okay? It's very interesting to understand is that when you feel that bodily reaction to a thought, when you feel the need to reassure yourself somehow, you're looking for some sort of safety net, whatever it may be, don't do the behavior that is fueled by that negative thought. When you don't do the behavior that is fueled by a negative thought, you score a point. You level up 1 point. So when you do take a behavior that is rooted in these thoughts, so let's say you have a fear of food, certain foods, whatever it may be, and you're always fearing that you're going to get sick, you're always fearing that you're going to get poisoned, I don't know, something ridiculous, obviously. You're always in fearful mode. You're always hyper checking food. You're always compulsively Google searching and trying to find out if what you're eating is safe, even though you know reasonably it is safe. So let's use that for an example. When you Google search, when you hyper check, when you hyper analyze the food, whatever it may be, you are giving fuel to that fear, that thought. So you are showing your mind, hey, this is an important series and bundle of information that you're giving me. I need you to keep sending it to me because this is something I prioritize in my life. This is something that's going to keep me safe. Okay? But you know reasonably that these thoughts aren't keeping you safe and that they are imaginary dangers. So when you score a point, when you level up, is when you don't act in a way that your bodily discomfort is trying to force you to act. Okay? So when you're going through a lot of negative thoughts and your body, the discomfort that you're experiencing is trying to move you into hiding away in your room and throwing the whole day away. When you don't do that, when you don't listen to the fearful thoughts, you level up again. And you're going to keep leveling up and leveling up and leveling up. And what you're going to build is a desensitization. You're going to become desensitized to a varying spectrum of thoughts, I would call them. Okay, because you receive probably thousands of thoughts a day, and there's a very select few that are causing a visceral negative reaction inside of you. And it is those thoughts that are creating a thought loop, which is keeping you miserable, right? The cycle continues. You're going about your day, a thought enters into your awareness, you confuse this thought for being either you who is speaking, or you become convinced that for some reason your thoughts know the future and the nightmare type situation that they are predicting and trying to convince you is going to happen, for some reason it's true and your thoughts can somehow act as a fortune teller. And it's about realizing the nonsensical, you know, functions that are at play. And here's where the video game aspect kind of comes into play in two different ways. So number one, when you play a video game, there's usually, targets or enemies that you have to eliminate, whatever that may be. These targets these targets and enemies that you have to eliminate are your thoughts. But you don't eliminate them by attacking them. You eliminate them by not giving them a reaction. Right? So this video game is inversed. Whenever a negative thought pops up, you destroy it by not giving it a single reaction, by not paying any attention to it, by not allowing it to change the way you're living your life whatsoever, no matter how much discomfort you're feeling. Number two, the good thing about this video game is once you pass a level, once you destroy an enemy, whatever it may be, the levels don't get harder. They get easier. So you're starting at the hardest level and you're making your way down. That first thought that you try not to pay attention to is going to be the hardest. And the thing is, it's not going to be very easy to get rid of because it's going to keep coming back. So you're going to sit there washing the dishes, sitting in your kitchen, laying in your bed, driving your car, taking a walk, whatever it may be. You're going to be living your life, and this thought is going to come into your awareness, and you're going to think of this game that I'm talking about right now. And you're going to hold still, You're going to try your best not to argue with that thought. And you might get sucked in a little bit into a thought loop, and then you bring yourself back and you say, oh, no, I'm not supposed to be doing this. And then again, and then you bring yourself back over and over and over. And that's basically the concept of meditation, is observing yourself getting stuck in thought loops and bringing yourself back into the awareness that you're not supposed to be doing that. So now let's talk about what is going to be the most valuable asset that you have in this video game. So what is going to fast forward your progress the most? What is going to put the most points on the board? What is going to help you level up the most out of overthinking, out of OCD, whatever it may be? And that is, number one, it's actions. So our brains learn through observing our actions most of all. Our brains form an identity, a sense of self over who we are. And it is in this perception and in this identity, sense of self, that it understands how to function and how to best assist you in any way, right? So it reads your reactions on a daily basis. And as a result of reading, learning, understanding, and observing these reactions, it starts to function in a very particular way. And the longer you repeat acting like a certain version of yourself, the longer you repeat certain behaviors, the longer you repeat engaging and arguing with negative thoughts and letting them influence the way you're going to live your life, the more that the brain starts to understand or believe that this is what you want. You know, that you prefer this way of living. That's what the brain associates, because it doesn't speak logic. It speaks through observance. So it can only observe what you're doing. You know, when you're trying to convince your mind inside of your head that those thoughts aren't real, you know, those thoughts are coming from the same place that you're trying to convince. So let me rephrase that. When you get a negative thought, when you get a fearful thought and you start arguing with it, it doesn't do anything because you're fighting fire with fire. But when you come back into your body, when you relax into awareness, into being in the present moment and detach from the thoughts and realize they are not you, then you create a sense of detachment and separation between your awareness of the thought and the thought itself. Arguing an irrational thought, trying to use rational logic, is never going to work because the brain doesn't understand that form of communication. You communicate with your brain in a very simple sort of biometric way. I don't even know if that's the right word, to be honest, but it's very like on and off how you communicate with your brain. It's either you do something or you don't. You react to something or you don't. It's like ones and twos. And the more that you repeat one, 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 the more that function becomes automatic in your mind. So now when a fearful thought comes into your mind, the brain doesn't even bother trying to create any sense of, you know, it doesn't bother trying to slow the traffic down whatsoever, because every time it sends you a fearful thought, you engage with it like no other. So by withholding your engagement in the thought, by not reacting to the thought in any sort of way, either by trying to argue in your own mind, you know, taking that voice as your own and trying to argue with the voice you can't control, blah, blah, blah. It, they're both the same thing. I'll get into that in a little bit, but that's not how you win. You win by withholding your reaction. That's how you level up. That's how you eliminate a certain fear. And it's by not reacting to it enough times where it finally fades. And that's the brain telling you, okay, I get it now. You don't react to this. You don't want this. You don't engage with it. So why would I keep sending you if it's not going to help you? The brain isn't trying to destroy your progress in this video game. If anything, you're going to realize that your brain is actually your greatest weapon. Your brain is your greatest tool. But if you don't learn to create a separation between you and the functions of your mind, you're going to forget that you're the player of the game and you're going to associate with all of the little things that are involved in the game itself. It's kind of like playing a video game where you don't realize that the person you're controlling is you, and you think that you're controlling all of the other players on the map as well. And like I said before, it's not going to get more difficult, but what is going to happen is your brain is going to get more creative. And, you know, one could hypothesize that the reason the brain gets more creative with trying to trigger you in these certain ways isn't necessarily to test you, but more to test itself and its own function. So the brain has an algorithm, and to make sure it's right about your progress. So let's say you start making a good amount of progress, you're really focusing on not reacting to thoughts and you're doing pretty good and you're starting to feel a little bit of space, you're starting to feel a little bit of peace. Hours go by, you don't really think negative thoughts and all these things. You're starting to see a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel. The brain says, okay, let me just make sure that this is what they want. So it sends a creative, fearful thought that it kind of knows it's going to trigger you. And this might be a new one that you've never heard before, right? And you're going to think, wait a minute, I'm leveling up. Like, why am I still getting these fearful thoughts? And it's not because you are going backward, but because you're going forward, the brain needs to assure itself of its programming. And so it sends these creative, fearful thoughts that are meant to trigger you to ensure that you are no longer the type of person that is going to engage with fearful, nonsensical thoughts. So it's not about you, it's about the brain. And if you get caught up in the fictional fairy tale of it all, then you start to go down in levels. So a quick recap here. Number one, do not seek reassurance. Do not seek safety. Do not seek an explanation. Do not seek to prove any of these fearful, anxious thoughts wrong. That is how you lose the level. This shows your brain that you do want these thoughts. So do not change your actions in any way because of irrational thoughts, because that's not a very rational thing to do. Number two, do not become convinced that your thoughts, especially the fearful ones, can know the future. Even though they get very creative, you only put points on the board for your peace of mind. You only put points on the board of being truly emotionally free from these thoughts by not reacting to them at all. And I want to add a small caveat because this is probably what has been on a lot of your guys' minds through watching this video is what do I do about the positive thoughts? If you're saying I am not my thoughts, then what are the good thoughts that I have? And those are also not you, right? That's also a cognitive function that's also neurotransmitters in the brain that are firing, but they're just carrying a different energy. And if you want to get real tricky with it, and this is something I don't recommend at the beginning, and that is that you can actually engage with positive thoughts to feed the algorithm of your mind that you prefer and prioritize positive thoughts, and it'll start sending you those naturally. But I actually think it's much more efficient if you're struggling with thoughts, if you're struggling with OCD or anything, to just detach from all thoughts and put complete trust in you as an awareness of you as a presence in the body. That's the player of this game. And if you're looking at this as a sort of game to break free from, then you need to realize who the player is. And the player is awareness, right? So no thoughts are you. Even so, the random thoughts, you could probably guess those aren't you because you have no control over them. Those are obviously not you. But what about the thoughts that we purposefully think, we kind of craft up? That is more, a cognitive representation of attention going in a certain memory bank of the brain. That's kind of the best way I can describe it. But it's still not you that is being vocalized inside of the mind. The you that is true, the you that is the essence of who you are, is actually the one that can hear yourself speaking and can actually look upon those thoughts with distance, no matter if you're controlling the thoughts or they're coming sort of out of your control. The last step is when you are breaking free is to not avoid triggers and to not be afraid to venture into unknown territories to test yourself. Okay? So, I'm hoping that this video has helped you, but what is not going to help you is relying on this video constantly and seeking reassurance from it alone. Put this video down. You don't have to listen to it more than once or twice, and then go about your life and remember this game. Remember this method and know that it's backed by actual psychological evidence. I'm not going to quote any, you know, papers here, but if you want to look up how, you know, certain brain functions work as a result of detaching from an inner monologue, you'll see that people find peace as a result of not engaging with their thoughts. As a result of exposing themselves to all the thoughts and becoming desensitized and realizing that they are not their thoughts, their peace, their happiness no longer is weighed on the fact, or sorry, is no longer weighed on them banking that they're only going to have good thoughts. If you are only banking on yourself having good thoughts to be in a good mood, then you're never going to be in a good mood. A sustainable way to live your life is to remove all belief from thought. Don't believe a single thing your thoughts say. And when you're ready, you can start to engage with positive thoughts in, becoming more of a meta-cognitive journeyman. But for now, if you just want to break free, if you're truly just struggling and you feel like you're suffering, just do this game in the way that I said it. Don't seek reassurance. Don't take any actions as a result of the thoughts. And don't be afraid to be triggered. Don't let those triggers don't let those triggers take you back to step 1 and 2. These will put points on the board for you. You will level up, your brain will start to learn, and you will become and feel more free. That's it for today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to leave a link in the description to my book if you want to go deeper into things like this. I don't completely just touch on this subject. I touch on other things as well. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify, thank you as always, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.